Have you ever woke up from a dream and you just knew that God was speaking to you in that dream and you wanted to get what he was saying? Hey, my name is Patsy, and today's devotion is on how God speaks to us in our dreams. Some years ago, maybe 15 years ago, I had a dream, and in this dream, I was driving down my street and I noticed a car on the side of the road, and I thought these people probably need help, so I got out and went over to the driver's side window, and there was no one in the driver's seat, but there was two older ladies in the car. One was in the passenger seat and one was in the back seat, and they just seemed like they were completely traumatized. They were confused, disoriented. They needed help, and I was just didn't know what had happened, but I knew that they needed help, and I felt that God prompted me to pray for them. And I said, I'm going to pray for you ladies. I said, but first I'm going to move this car out of the road. And so I got in the car, and when I did, the car started accelerating very fast, and it went across the street and down into an embankment, and then the car started spinning around backwards in circles, and I could not get the car to stop, and I was trying my best to get the car to stop. And then I woke up, and I just knew when I woke up that God was telling me something that I needed to understand about that dream. I didn't understand why everything had gotten totally out of control. And what the Lord showed me about that dream is that God did not ask me to move the car. He asked me, and he prompted me to pray for the people. And that is what I was going to do, but first I went ahead and done what I thought needed to be done. And this dream is a perfect example of a lot of situations we have in life where we try to take care of it ourselves. We do what we think we need to do when it's already something that God knows what to do, and he knows how to handle it. He just wants us to take it to him in prayer. He just wants us to bring it before him and to depend on him and to give it to him and to be the one that intercedes for another person. And so what God showed me in that dream is that I need to do what he asked me to do. God didn't ask me to move the car. He asked me to pray. And we just need to be obedient on the things that God has shown us to do, or that we feel in our spirit that God is telling us to do. And I want to give a couple scriptures that speak of God speaking in our dreams and how he instructs us. And Joel chapter 2 verse 28, it says, and it shall come to pass afterwards that I will pour out my spirit on all flesh. Your old men shall dream dreams, and your young men shall see visions. And that's just part of the verse, but it's saying that God in the last days is going to pour out his spirit on all flesh, and we're going to have dreams, and God is going to give us those dreams. And this is the language of the last days, where God is speaking to people through dreams and visions. And then in Numbers chapter 12 verse 6, it says, is there a prophet among you? I, the Lord myself, make known to him in a vision, and I will speak in a dream. And there's a verse right there that shows us that God speaks to his servants, his people, through dreams. And then in Job 33 verse 14 through 18, it says, for God speaks once, yes, twice, yet man perceives it not. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls upon men, then he opens their ears of men and seals their instructions. And so God knows that while we're asleep, our brains turned off, and we are more receptive to hear with our spirit. And so it's a good time for God to speak to us, where we can hear clearly his voice. And you might say, Patsy, I don't ever have dreams, and I never remember my dreams. Well, I want to challenge you with that, because science says that everybody dreams. And if you didn't, you would go crazy. Your brain is literally processing information when you dream, and your body is doing your brain is part of your body. It's doing things that it needs to do through dreaming. And so everybody dreams. And if you just ask God to help you to remember your dream when you wake up, He will. And ask God to speak to you in your dreams, and He will. You can ask the Lord questions that you don't have understanding of and say, God, will you show me and speak to me in a dream? Help me to understand this, and God will. And so I can attest to that many, many times. You know, I've asked God about something, and it might not be that night that He gave me the answer. It might be three nights later or a week later. But when I got the answer, I knew it was the answer to what I had asked God. And so dreaming is powerful. It's a tool that God uses to speak to us. And I'll share one more part about this dream that is just absolutely amazing. Because when God speaks, there's layers of revelation of what He has to say. Sometimes we can only understand the first top surface layer of what He's speaking. And then as we grow in our walk with God, other layers, deeper layers of understanding we will learn and we will come to know. So what had happened was with this dream, and it was probably almost 15 years after I had the dream, I was sitting in a room with ladies at a worship event, and I saw this older woman sitting off to the side, and she just, was just sitting there. She seemed to be not in the best spirits. But when I looked at her, I remembered my dream, and she reminded me of the ladies that were in the car who had been traumatized and who had been, they were disoriented and they needed somebody to pray for them. And while I was sitting there and I was looking at her, God brought back that dream to my mind, and He said, she's like those ladies that were in that car. And I heard the Spirit say, I want you to pray for her. Well, I knew, from my past lesson that I learned that, that's exactly what I need to do. And given this chance to, in real life, pray for somebody instead of doing something what I think needed to be done. And I could have thought, well, I can go over there, encourage her, or, give her a hug, or, just try to be an encouragement to her. But that's not what God asked me to do. He asked me to go pray for her. So I went and I prayed for her. And as I did, God was bringing up things to comfort her and to bring healing in her life. Her husband had passed. She was very traumatized by not having her husband in her life, and she was exactly like those women that were in the car that day, where they were just like disoriented. They couldn't think clear. Their whole life looked like it had been turned upside down. And I was able to pray with her, and had it not been for that dream that I had 15 years ago that God taught me such a valuable lesson in, then I most likely would not have been the person, or even had the thought, or Holy Spirit wouldn't have even had the opportunity in that moment to prompt me in the right way where I knew how to pray for her that day. And so that is just one example of how amazing God is, and how He speaks to us in our dreams, and how He will use a dream if you steward His word, His written word, or even His word that He speaks to you by His Spirit in your dreams. If you steward that word, He can bring so many beautiful things out of it. And I hope this blesses you guys, and I pray that you have dreams, God dreams, not just demonic dreams where the enemy is attacking you, but you get past those dreams and you start having dreams where God is showing you more of who He is, and more of who you are, and how He sees you, and what He wants to do in your life, and how He wants to grow you, and how much He loves you. God bless you.